Welcome to class. Today we're going to go through a 25-minute series of foundation Pilates moves. So let's begin. Feet hip joint distance apart. And we're going to start reaching our arms up towards the ceiling and then down towards our hips. 2 more times. Nice big inhale and reach. Exhale and lower. Last time, big inhale to lift, exhale to lower. We'll go into our roll downs, nodding our chin towards our chest and peeling through our neck vertebra, mid back, and low back. Little knee bend at the bottom, head dangle. Push through those feet, and you're going to stack back up. Low back, mid back, neck, and head. We'll do it again. Nodding chin to chest, rolling down through neck, upper back, mid back, low back, pelvis, and then push through the floor to stack that pelvis, low back, mid, upper, neck, and head. Last time, nodding, rolling down. Knees are bent. Once we get hands to floor, we can come into hands and knees. And in that hands and knees position, we'll check that wrists are under shoulders, knees are under hips, and we'll round that spine and dip the spine. Pushing into the floor with the hands, rounding and dipping. And see if you can connect with the movement of your spine, rounding up to the ceiling, and then dipping away from the ceiling. Maybe connecting to those same vertebrae that you use to do your standing roll downs. And see, can I find quite a few segments here in the spine as I round my spine flexion as it's called, and dip my spine extension. Rounding that spine, pushing the floor away, and dipping that spine. Come to neutral, and then we'll come to lie on our backs. So hook lying position, knees bent, feet flat, arms resting long at your sides, and we'll just take a few breaths here to settle onto the mat. So as you inhale, you're going to think about 3-dimensional expansion through your ribs. And as you exhale, you can feel 3-dimensional narrowing of the ribs. So inhale, feeling those ribs expand in 3D, front, sides, and back. And as you exhale, feeling those ribs reverse their journey and narrow. 2 more. Inhale, expand. Exhale, narrow. Inhale, expand. And exhale, narrow. And then we'll landmark our hip points, or our ASISs, so those little bones that stick out on the front sides of the pelvis. And you'll start to rock those hip points towards your ribs and rock those hip points away from your ribs. Rocking those hip points towards your ribs and rocking those hip points away from your ribs. As you rock the hip points towards the ribs, you'll feel the low back flatten. And as you rock the hip points away from the ribs, you'll feel the low back arch. So feeling that low back flattening and arching. Low back flattens into the mat, and low back arches and lifts away from the mat. And you're rocking that pelvis with as much as necessary and as little as possible when it comes to muscle activation. So really just letting that pelvis flow and rolling it back. That's when the hips come towards the ribs, and rolling it forwards when the hips move away from the ribs. And trying to initiate this movement from the pelvis, you allow the back muscles to respond, but you're not overly engaging back, glutes, or abdominal muscles. Just let it flow. You're going to pause in between your two end ranges. And now we're going to move the pelvis in a different plane. So hands or fingertips can rest back on those hip points. And you're gently going to reach one hip point towards your heel, while the other hip point goes up towards your armpit. And then you're going to switch. So one hip point is reaching towards your heel or your foot, while the other one reaches towards the armpit. So in the cueing, we're referencing up and down as it relates to head being up, down being feet. And you can notice that one hip point is reaching down while the other hip point is reaching up. Nice and slow here. And you might notice that whichever hip point is reaching up towards the armpit, that waistline is shortening. So while one waistline is shortening, the other waistline is lengthening. And here we have what's called lateral flexion of the pelvis. You're going to find your middle zone, and we're going to go into some rotation of the pelvis side to side. So this is our third plane of motion. So here, one hip point is going to reach towards the ceiling or the front of the body, and then the other hip point is going to reach towards the ceiling or the front of the body. And we're thinking maybe that our hip points have little puppeteer strings on them, and that puppeteer is pulling one hip point to the front of the body and then pulling the other hip point to the front of the body. Now, you might notice that as one hip point goes more to the front of the body, the other hip point goes more to the back of the body. And then you switch. So here, we're rotating that pelvis side to side. One hip point to the front, while the other hip point goes to the back of the body. And here we're turning our pelvis left and right. Again, initiating the movement from the pelvis and keeping as much ease as we can in that low back area. So it shouldn't feel effortful. It should feel like you can just gently move that pelvis side to side. And then we'll pause in the middle and we'll bring in some upper body movement. So we're reaching those arms up towards the ceiling, pressing those palms together and start to rock the torso from one side to the other. So here we're rotating through the spine and seeing if we can rock the ribs side to side while keeping our knees to the ceiling and our pubic bones and belly buttons to the ceiling. So we're moving above the belly button and really emphasizing the movement at the ribs, trying to keep our thumbs in line with our breastbone and our chin also in line with our breastbone as we rotate those ribs side to side. Come to center, arms long at your sides. You're going to step your feet about mat width apart, and we're going to sway those knees over to one side and then over to the other side. So a nice little sway. Your arms could even come out to an A-frame or a T, and feel how that pelvis tipping or turning to one side also helps the spine to rotate to that side. And we'll aim to keep the opposite shoulder anchored to the floor. Well, both shoulders, but keeping that opposite shoulder anchored is really going to help get a nice rotation through that spine. And then we'll come to center, bring our arms back to our sides and knees to the ceiling, feet hip bone distance apart. We're going to plant those elbows now into the floor, fingertips reaching towards the ceiling, and we're going to go into a few bridge movements. So from here, pressing into our feet and backs of shoulders, lifting the pelvis up, and then creasing at the hip joint to lower the pelvis down. So as we lift up, that hip crease opens, becomes flat or flush, and as we lower down, the hips crease. If you'd like a breath pattern, you can exhale to lift those hips up and inhale to lower those hips down. Maintaining a gentle press, backs of shoulders, nice and controlled with that bridge work. So these are our neutral shoulder bridges. Neutral meaning that the spine stays relatively, the curves don't change very much. So the next time we are going to pause at the bottom, and then we're going to do our articulated shoulder bridge where we peel up and peel down. So to peel up, we're going to rock those hip points towards our ribs. The low back connects to the mat, and then vertebra by vertebra, we lift our spine off the mat, articulating. At the top, instead of going straight down, we lower vertebra by vertebra, peeling ourselves back to the mat. Rock those hip points away from the ribs, let that tailbone go, and then we'll begin again. Hip points move towards the ribs, and we peel our spine up, bone by bone. And then we peel our spine down, bone by bone. And just seeing how many segments of our spine can we find? Can we improve that articulation as we go, finding a little bit more segmental movement? And then, of course, we're working our hip muscles, our glutes, but we're also getting that really nice spine articulation. Peel down, and We'll widen arms, widen legs, and go back to those sways. So whichever direction the knees are going, just make sure that that opposite shoulder stays heavy as you sway the knees side to side. And you might even feel after that articulated bridge work that your sways are somehow a little bit freer. Then we'll come back to the center, arms long at our sides, feet hip joint distance. And we'll go into a couple of hip folds. Now, sometimes I like to rest my fingertips back on those ASISs just to get a sense that they're balanced. And then I prepare with an inhale and exhale, pulling one leg into a tabletop / hip fold. And then setting down. So we can inhale to prepare and exhale, pull to tabletop, and inhale, set down. We can get right into exhale to tabletop and inhale, lower down, and going into that alternating tabletop and feeling that the back of your pelvis is fairly stable. Also feeling that the hip points are fairly stable. So there's not a whole lot of rocking side to side as we do our alternating hip fold. And sometimes it's nice to think about it like a hip fold, because really we want that action coming from the hip joint, and there's very little movement in the other joints of the body. On your next repetition, you're going to bring one leg to tabletop, hold, bring the other leg to join. We're going to reach our arms up towards the ceiling. Allow that to round out the mid-back a little bit into the mat. And from here, we're going to reach one leg long and pull it back to double tabletop. Switch, reach, and reverse. You can use an exhale as that lever lengthens, and you're keeping the back of the pelvis stable. You're keeping your low back arch gentle, and you're keeping that mid back gently pressing into the floor. We'll go for one more each side. Last one. And then lower one leg down, lower the other leg down. All right, excellent job. From here, we're gonna lay on our sides. You can have a little pillow or yoga block underneath your head for comfort. You can also have your head on the floor if that works in your body. Knees are bent, feet are stacked. And from here, we're going to drag our top hand across our bottom arm and open to the side. And then we'll reverse. So these are our book opening exercises where we're keeping our knees, our pubic bone, our belly button pointed forward. And we're rotating that trunk again. So a nice big inhale to encourage that rotation can feel good. So as you're opening, nice big inhale. And then an exhale to return. We'll do one more. Nice big inhale. exhale, return. Excellent. So now with a block under head, or if it feels okay, come up into a posted position. And from here, we're going to lengthen that top leg out and start with a little lift, lower of that top leg. So lifting and lowering and trying not to hike the top waistline. So you're not getting any shorter in the top waistline as you do this lift lower. And then we're going to lift and hold, and we're going to circle 4 times in one direction, 4 times in the other direction, and then lower down. Excellent work. We're going to come on to hands and knees and just do a couple cat-cows before we do the second side. So a little round and dip, round and dip. One more. And then we'll change sides. So laying all the way down on side number 2 for our book openings to start. Arms stretched out in front, knees bent, feet stacked in line with pelvis. And here we go, dragging top arm across bottom and then opening up. Now, hopefully you've situated yourself somewhere where you don't have a wall in such close proximity, and you can really open that arm up, open that chest up. But even here, you can kind of sweep that hand if you're short on space, bring it to the forehead, and still get that nice chest opening, thoracic rotation. Knees, pubic bones, and belly buttons are aiming forward. And you're working once again on that rotation through the thorax. One more time. And then we'll come heads on pillows, yoga blocks, or propped up in a posted position. Lengthening out that top leg. Foot's a little bit active. I know you can't see it, but it's not just drooping, it's a little bit active as we lift and lower, and lift and lower, lift and lower. Trying to keep that waistline relatively long on the top side, so not hitching or hiking that waistline. And then we'll hold that leg at hip height, circle 4 times in your first direction. And then we switch 4 times in direction number 2. And then lower down into hands and knees, beginning in a neutral spine this time. So we're not dipped, we're not rounded. So we do have a little dip at the neck and a little dip at the low back. Those are our natural or neutral curves. Tucking those toes under, and you're going to sit your hips back towards the heels, but just halfway, and then come forward. And I want you to feel that when you go back, that your glutes or the base of the pelvis widens. And when you reverse, it narrows. So you can add an inhale to hinge back and an exhale to come forward. And as you're hinging back, you can think about that base of the pelvis, the bum really widening, and reverse, it narrows. So that inhalation allows your sits bones to widen, allows the base of the pelvis to lengthen, and then it narrows. 2 more times. A nice inhale to widen base of pelvis, lengthening it. And an exhale reverses that action. Last one, nice inhale, widening, lengthening base of pelvis, and reverse. From here, we'll push into our hands and feet. We can lift those hips up, walk our feet towards our hands, and then walk our hands towards our feet. Knees are bent. And we're going to push into the floor, rolling up pelvis, low back, mid, upper, neck, head. We'll do that 2 more times, nodding to roll down, chin to chest, neck, upper, mid back, low back, pelvis. We push into the floor and we reverse it. 1 more time, nodding down, roll, roll, roll. Notice that articulation. Maybe the spine's moving with a little more ease. And back up. And then we'll reach those arms up. And exhale, they come down. 2 more. Inhale. And exhale. Last one. And that is our foundation movement class for today. Thank you.